At the minute, many of us know how it feels to be frightened of leaving our houses. An invisible enemy is out there. When the weather is nice, and it's the holidays too, well, that's far from normal. But back at the unfolding Easter story, a number of people were equally scared of venturing outside. For them, the threat wasn't a virus, but possible violence. Jesus had been snatched in a night raid, summarily tried and killed, supposedly in the interest of preventing civil unrest in a country under foreign occupation. But within a couple of days, a tale of the utterly unexpected starts going around. Is Jesus dead or not? Is it fake news that the holy man, so despised by the religious authorities, is actually alive and kicking? Even his closest associates disagree as they wait in their safe house for the storm to blow over. One of the 11 remaining disciples, Thomas, a twin, is definitely not on the same page as the others. "Have you gone soft to the head?" I said to them. They were scared, see. They hadn't wanted to come to Jerusalem even before. But after that night in the garden, it were obvious. Jesus were right. He weren't Mr. Popular with the temple bigwigs. And they managed to get the Roman governor on side. Never mind giving that miserable worm Judas a backhander to betray him. I were ready to die with him, I'd said so afore we came here. But when it came to it, and the guards showed up with clubs and swords, I did what anyone would. I scarpered. Survival instinct. They nailed Jesus onto one of their crosses. It were grim. So there we were, all keeping our heads down. Of course, I were upset. No idea what to do now. It were a proper disaster. He were really summat. We all thought it. Never seen the like. But then, turned out he were only human, after all. Any road, it were the morning after that first Shabbat, when things started getting even weirder. That Mary, aye, the one Jesus made well. Though if you ask me, those steps still didn't go right to the roof terrace. She came flying in, saying she'd seen him alive again. Jesus! It were the women's group, all a bit hysterical after the No notice me. I'd seen quite a few of those in the past. Romans don't do leniency. And then, well, a week passed. Us chaps was still lying low. It were a miserable time. But we had to eat and that, so I put on my cloak, I pulled the hood up and headed down to the market. No one bothered me. And by the time I were back inside, I was thinking that this year's angel of death had passed over good and proper. No one gave me a second glance. We were going to be all right. I let myself in with the bread and the fish, a couple of melons, essentials, and blow me down. The whole blinking lot of 'em, suddenly infested with a whole swarm of Mad Mary's demons. He were here, they said. Jesus! In the flesh. Never heard out so daft in me life. Seeing things, just like the women. Except this time Jesus is making house calls. So, how did he get in here through the locks and that heavy bar? All the security were firmly in place. I'd heard 'em locking and barring after I went out. Wouldn't have thought they'd be so suggestible, but no. It weren't some apparition ghostly trick of the light coming in through the shutters. They said he spoke to 'em like, said, "Peace be with you," just like before. And he were breathing. Breathed on 'em. Never i' the God's world my granny would have said. So I told 'em straight, nah, don't believe a word of it. I'm a practical sort. None of that airy-fairy, angely, touchy-feely piffle for me. Leave that to the ladies and John maybe. I know Jesus said God were his father, and I know he could do all sort of strange things, turn water into wine, magic up lunch for thousands from a few tuna rolls, and then there were his mate Lazarus. But it didn't stop him getting killed, did it? See? Just a regular bloke after all. I told 'em. Don't know what they'd seen, but I told 'em. I'd want to see. I'd want to touch the marks of the gallows, the nails, the spear hole, and then, maybe, I'd admit it were really him, like they said. Not much changed after that. They still wouldn't go out, proper lockdown. You'd have thought that if he were really back, they'd have been out telling folk. No one comes back from cross, you know, and he were buried, right and proper. Solid tomb, stone, great big slab. And they didn't believe Mad Mary when she said, granted, summat funny had gone on, but she was still as crazy as a box of locusts. My own senses, physical proof, that's what I wanted. Anyone sensible would have said same. 7 long days, and we're still behind closed doors, and when nobody were expecting out at all, he were there, Jesus, right in the room. And you'd have thought he'd heard me. See my hands? Put your finger here, on my side, see? I barely remember what I did. I could see him, hear him. He was solid as the others, as close as that. Flesh and blood, warm, breathing, like they said. I knew then. My mind had been in lockdown too. I didn't want to let the tiniest glimmer of hope in, only to have it mangled again, to feel that grief, that shock, that devastation. Jesus were not just an ordinary bloke at all. Peace. He said it again. That weren't what I felt. Shame and joy about equal. I think I said, my Lord and my God. And I fell on the floor in a heap. And his feet, them gaping wounds, bruises, right under my nose. And he laughed. He laughed like he used to. And he asked if I only believed because I'd seen him for myself. He knew me all right. We can only negotiate the world, like Thomas, via the evidence of our senses and our powers of memory. Thomas knew that the dead don't come back, despite having seen Lazarus raised. But the sheer mystery of life and death, of who Jesus really was, fully human and yet fully God, is far beyond our puny understanding. The trick is to learn that God can do anything with his creations, even outside the little boxes we try to keep him in. Allowing God to operate beyond our own limited understanding and experience is something we all have to learn. He is not as small as we think. We only need to believe, like Thomas.